I'm Mary O'Mara, and I'm here with Franciose Lepage, 2007 inductee into the Marin Women's Hall of Fame in the area of education. The president of Dominican University of California, who nominated Fran to the Marin Women's Hall of Fame for this year, stated, "Franciose has been one of Marin's visionary leaders for the past 30 years. Her energy, drive, commitment are legendary at Dominican, where she is professor and dean emerita of the School of Business and International Studies." Welcome.
Thank you.
So tell us where you were born and how you grew up.
I was born in actually quite a small town, Auburn, Maine, about 30 miles north of Portland, Maine. I'd say probably a provincial town. But the advantage I think I had is I was brought up in a bicultural environment. I was brought up I was French-Canadian and brought up in an environment that was French as well as American. And I think that opens your world. You realize that people have different cultures, different language, different traditions. And I think when you have that experience in your childhood, it changes your thinking. So I think I was very fortunate to have that experience at home.
So early school experiences, where did you go to school?
I went to a Catholic parochial school that was bilingual. And so we had classes in French in the morning, English in the afternoon. I studied science in French, which is always very interesting to people. But again, that experience of being bilingual, I think, is a great advantage. It made studying other languages much easier because your frame of reference is more than one language. And I went to a public high school in Auburn. And then I left New England and went to college in Virginia.
And after college?
After college, I went to graduate school in Washington, D.C. at the Catholic University of America. I did my master's and doctorate before coming out west in 1975.
And so how did you choose your profession? Were there mentors along the way or strong influences? Or how did you know or how did you pick what you wanted to do?
Yeah, you know, that's an interesting question. Students always assume that you're born with this love for the major that you select. And actually, I selected the major because I did well in it. I was a rather average student in high school. And in college, I was a fairly good student, but I wasn't very good at math. But I took a course in the social sciences. And my teacher at that time at Marymount, Mary Fitzpatrick, told me, she said, "Franciose, you're very good at this." And it was some of the first A's I had in college. So I assumed if I'm good at it, it must be the major I should select. And that's literally how I selected it. And she encouraged me. She encouraged me to apply to graduate school. So the mentoring was very, very important for me in college.
And where did the drive for teaching come?
Well, I think it was this same teacher. I was so taken by her. She opened the world to all of us. And she was intriguing. She was multifaceted. One of the assignments that she had given us, this is pre-internet, she wanted us to read the International Herald Tribune and to look, and you were responsible to report on all aspects of it, not just the politics or the economics, but the art, the literature. And so I admired that. She was really a Renaissance woman. And I thought, I wonder if I could ever be that. And then you just do it by, year after year, and you keep pursuing it. My family encouraged me, she encouraged me, and she was my role model, and to this day is.
And so you're still in contact with her?
Well, she passed away about 20 years ago.
I see.
But I had the opportunity to meet with her in Washington when I finished my doctorate, and she knew I was pursuing a career in teaching.
So when did you begin teaching?
I started teaching actually in 1967. I started at Marymount College at the time of Virginia. It's now Marymount University. And I taught there for 7 years before in 1974, I decided that my sole experience had been education from preschool through graduate school to teaching at Marymount, and I wanted a different experience. And so my parents encouraged me to, take a risk. And so I resigned from Marymount after 7 years. I was 30. It was a good time to take that risk. I was single. So it wasn't a high risk. I wasn't responsible for a family. And I moved to New York, where my older sister lived with her husband. And within 3 weeks, I had a job as the marketing research supervisor for the Campbell Soup account at Batten, Barton, Durstein, and Osborne, a very large advertising firm. And when people said, how did you get that job with a degree in international relations? And it was very interesting. Campbell's did not trust what they called Madison Avenue slickies. And so I just fit. I was the perfect profile. College professor, I understood research, but not Madison Avenue. And so we built a trust, and I did that for about a year and really enjoyed it, but missed teaching. And I felt empowered to go back to teaching because during my time, if you were a college professor, you were often accused of being in an ivory tower. And what I found in business, in a very fast-paced business on Madison Avenue, that everybody's in an ivory tower. And so I felt very comfortable coming back to academe and very confident in telling my students, this is the real world. The classroom is as real as the corporate office, because I had had that experience. And I came out west and found Dominican, and it's been a wonderful 31-year relationship that we've had.
So tell me about your work at Dominican. You've brought many different speakers to the university. You've developed programs. We have the new Green MBA program that you've been instrumental in bringing to the university.
First, to explain Dominican as an environment, I think it is important to understand that Dominican really supports entrepreneurship in its faculty and staff. And so, as we say, it was a match made in heaven for me, because I enjoy creating programs and looking at things differently. And so when I came to Dominican, they had few interdisciplinary programs. And so one of my first goals was to create an international studies program that would include politics, business, area studies, a focus on Europe, the Asia Pacific, Latin America, and the United States, and combining politics, business, culture, and language. And so we developed that in the late 70s, and that was very successful. It was a very popular major among students because it was a global era, and it was the rise of Asia economically, and so students were very interested in that. And from there, we had the notion that after doing research, it appeared obvious to us that graduate education in the United States, specifically graduate business education, was not international. And so what you found in your large universities was the ability to do dual degrees. You'd do an MBA and then an MA in Latin American Studies. And so we thought that why should graduate students have to do two majors, 2 degrees? We thought we could design a program that would allow one MBA with area focus. And we selected Asia Pacific because of the situation of California on the Pacific Rim. And clearly all the economic indicators in the 80s were that Asia was just, the tigers were really going. And we're always a little late in the United States. We still are focused, very Eurocentric. And so we thought that Dominican would be a good place to develop that program. And we did, and we started that graduate MBA program, MA program, MBA program in 1986. And from there, we decided about 10 years later that we needed to integrate environmental studies in that program, because it was obvious again that business, it's always business, politics, and economics, and education, have to work together to bring change. It's not one unit alone. And business is a key component in terms of leading the way to social change. And so we received grants to incorporate environment issues, sustainability in the MBA curriculum. And one student was so taken with this that he, after several years with his MBA, he created a green MBA that was at New College. And it was growing. It has grown so tremendously that they needed a greater infrastructure to support it. And so they're transferring it to Dominican in fall of 2007, which is very exciting for us because that student, in a sense, is coming home. And again, learning from our students. We taught, he's teaching. And so it's a wonderful metaphor for what occurs in an institution like Dominican. And so that was always important to me, to bring the globe on campus. And we also developed a speakers program to bring international experts from all over the world to our campus. And that has always been a very exciting component of the learning environment. And so that's been very enjoyable, and we've enjoyed including the Marin community, inviting the Marin community to many of these affairs.
So how do you stay at the cutting edge? It sounds to me like, from everything I've read about you, you're always sort of like a leader in your field, or you're always trailblazing. What's your secret for that? How do you do that?
Well, I think being in constant contact with students, you learn. I mean, you truly, when we say we learn from our students, it's not just a pleasantry that we say to make students feel well, but it's really true. I mean, you learn from your students, and your students challenge you. Unlike when I was in school in the 60s, maybe a bit, but we weren't challenging our faculty. We more or less believed what they were telling us. Our students are partners with us in education. It's much more interactive. The pedagogy in teaching today is very, very different. We used to have what we call sages on stages. Now it's guides on the side. So you're working together, and you learn, and they challenge you. And by challenging you, you're always looking at new ways to convey the knowledge, new ways of obtaining the knowledge, and new knowledge, because they'll ask you things you've never even considered. And so I think students, at least for me, and global from all over the world, they challenge your assumptions, they challenge your point of view, and you're constantly rethinking your own philosophy. And so I think that keeps us on the cutting edge. My colleagues are the same. We challenge each other. And then, of course, travel. I mean, you participate in the world. You can never come back thinking the same as when you left. So I think it's that. It's being open-minded, which is very Dominican. You know, the Dominican values are to look for truth, to participate in community service, but it's that constant search and reflection. And so I think that by living that, it keeps you on an edge.
So the Dominican tradition is alive and well.
Very alive and well, and it teaches you never to be comfortable, never to be complacent, never to think that you have all answers to all things. And as I often tell my students, I had more answers at 20 than I do at 60. You know, the older we are, the more experienced, the less comfortable you are with answers, and the more you learn to live with ambiguity.
So what challenges have you had to face? I know you've had some job changes and a lot of changes at the university, and so what has been significant for you that you've had to overcome?
I'd say probably the biggest challenge for me, I'm a child of the 60s. I applied to college in 1962, so the post-World War II babies, and colleges had a lot of choices. And my college boards were rather mediocre. And as a result of that, in 1962, I was rejected by every college I applied to, and it was based on very low college boards. And so that was a major challenge. It wasn't just an academic challenge, it was a personal challenge. And I was very fortunate to have educated parents who convinced me that perhaps part of the problem was not just me, but it was the test itself. That the test evaluated certain aspects of an individual's capabilities, but not all of them. and they convinced me that my creativity and perseverance were probably as important as what the College Board was testing. And they encouraged me to find schools that took college boards at the time less seriously. And Marymount College of Virginia was such a school, and it made a huge difference in the lives of hundreds of students. And many of us excelled and went on to pursue doctorates or medical degrees, law degrees. But that was a key challenge to believe that a national test was probably not as accurate as all these institutions were making it out to be. And so that was a major one. I'd say that was the biggest one. That was the biggest one for me. Mm-hmm. The others were all interesting because I tend to like change, and as long as it offers opportunities for growth. And even when I went to Madison Avenue, not knowing marketing research, I was very clear that I knew research, but I had never done marketing research. And I was convinced that if I understood Machiavelli and the Prince, that was more important. And if I knew research, I would learn their methodology. And so although it was a challenge, it was a positive challenge. So I'd say overall in my life I've been lucky. Since that College Board experience, challenges have been positive rather than overwhelming. And that's fortunate. Not all people have that type of experience.
Well, that type of experience that creates a mindset.
Yes, yes.
Which then, when you do get faced with a challenge, you have a different way of looking at it.
That's right. And I think at times, students, I always tell my students, I think the students who often succeed best at life are what we call average students, I consider myself an average student. I had A's and B's, but I had my shares of D's and F, had an F in finite math, and I learned that, you can fail and succeed in life. And I think at times when I meet college students who are upset if they have an A minus, and their whole world falls apart if they don't have a 4.0, I try to convince them that life will have a lot of C's and a lot of D's and perhaps some F's. And you just have to learn to be resilient. And I find that average students they achieve, they do get A's, they do get 4.0s, but it's a very different mindset. And I think I was fortunate to have had those struggles, that F in finite math, and rejected by colleges. I think that served me very well in life.
Well, creativity and perseverance and resilience.
Resilience, that, one F does not end the world. And you have many students that have a very difficult time with failure. And I think that perhaps we educators have not done a good job at that. And from K through 12 and in college and in graduate school, maybe we really need to rethink what we're doing to our students.
What would you say for young women today? What are some, we've talked about creativity and perseverance, but you work with these young women every day. You see the generations to come here. You've taught generations. Mm-hmm. Today, significant challenges in the world that we're facing in our personal lives and in our global awareness. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. What advice do you have for young women of today as they look at you and look at the Women's Hall of Fame and say, aspire to be, how do I get there? What do I need? How should I be thinking about my life?
Right. I think for young women, and I'd say young men as well, I would say to believe in yourself and to have the courage of your convictions. I know that peer pressure is difficult, but to have the courage of your convictions and to be resilient and to believe that you as an individual can make a difference. That at times when we look at the issues that face the world today, it can be so overwhelming that we feel paralyzed by it. But that an individual who is informed and starts at the local level, we can't eradicate world poverty overnight, but we can work with it in our communities, in our schools, so that to empower oneself is to be knowledgeable, to be informed, and to be involved in community service. Where can you make a difference in your community? And I think with each step that we take at the local level, at our community level, it empowers us to take bigger steps as we go through life. So that it's good to have a macro view, but start by acting micro. Don't be paralyzed by the overwhelming challenge. Break that challenge into a local challenge. And then collaborate, form partnerships, work with like-minded people. Because we have so many opportunities, especially in Marin. If you believe in it, there's a group supporting it. So join these groups and work with like-minded people. And I think that empowers you. And as you participate more and more, it becomes easier and you're more effective.
What would you say is your greatest success?
My greatest success, I think my greatest success is when a student tells me that I've made a difference. And sometimes it takes 20 years for them to write to you and to say, I was at this meeting today and I remembered what you said and it made a difference. And I think that, I would say that overall, that I have made a difference in my students' lives is probably what I would consider my greatest success. That and my hole-in-one on a golf course.
That's great.
Yeah.
So what really makes you happy? At the end of the day, you, Franciose, you have your career and you've had a lot of successes and a lot of experiences, but what really makes you happy at the end of the day?
I'd say it's a combination. I'm happy at the end of the day if I feel I've made a difference. And I think we're blessed in education, whichever level, we're blessed that we can make a difference every day. A kind thought or a kind comment to a student or a colleague can make a difference. Same way Mary Fitzpatrick said to me, "You're good at this." That statement that day changed my life in a way. And so when we're in education working with students, we can make that difference. So I feel blessed to be in an environment that a kind word, some encouragement can make a difference. I always feel good at the end of the day if I've been able to do that. Also family and friends. I think I'm a very relational type of individual. So family and friends, talking to my sister in New York, I talk to her every day just about. It's always, that's a nice part of the day. And I have these little children in my life that are now about a year and a half. We call them our adopted nieces. And when they look at you and smile and they're excited to see you. So it's those types of things. It's professional, it's personal. And of course, a nice day on a golf course with enough good shots to make me return. That's the combination I enjoy.
And your secret to keeping that balance in your life? Because you have a pretty demanding career.
Well, I think balance also comes with age. I'm 63. And I think I was not quite as balanced as I should have been for many, many, many years. But I think now I've been able to focus more on priorities, to be able to discern, if you will, to learn to say no, to be more pragmatic in approaching my life. And I think I have reached quite a good balance. There'll be a day where I'll decide to just stop my projects to be with the children. And 10, 15, 20 years ago, I never would have done that. So I think I'm a happier person with more balance. And I think that's another thing that students, that we did not learn, and I think many of my colleagues have not learned it, and that is that there comes a time when you have to say, I can't do it all. And I think that somehow we give a message to both boys and girls and men and women that we should be able to do it all. And you can't do it all. And so many of our college students are in school full-time, they work part-time, many of them have family obligations, and it's overwhelming burdens on them. So I think that we need to look very realistically at what we demand of ourselves and our students.
Very well stated. I think we are all working too hard, too fast, too long of hours, too many days.
Absolutely, and we delay. We delay enjoyment, and we don't need immediate gratification for everything, but we shouldn't have to wait for a vacation to enjoy life. Life should be enjoyed every day, every week. There should be a portion. And I think too many, I now enjoy it. And so I can tell you, you're much more productive when you have the opportunity to enjoy life a little more. But I think it should be younger, that people younger should have that time to do that, not just at my age.
Anything else you'd like to add to this interview today that you'd like to say to the audience that'll be watching you on television and as this tape is made available to lots and lots of people?
I suppose I'd like to re-emphasize to enjoy life, and that includes work. That includes work. You can really enjoy life and enjoy your work. And for individuals that wonder, and I know that that comes up quite often, if it's worth spending that money to take a trip overseas, I would highly encourage, yes, that to open, especially for families, to open the world to children is to give them such an opportunity and an advantage as they face life in the future. And so sometimes we think it's a luxury to do that type of traveling, but I'm starting to believe that it's almost a necessity. It's something that should be built into a family budget whenever you can. And you don't have to go far. I mean, here you can go to Mexico, which isn't too far. You can go to Canada, but it's still different cultures. It's different cultures, and that travel experience is so important. It certainly changed my whole worldview and continues to do it. Every time I take a trip, it changes my worldview.
Great. Thank you so much for today.
You're welcome. Pleasure.